He was the face of college football, a human highlight reel whose talent seemed limitless. Johnny Manziel, better known as Johnny Football, wasn't just a player, he was a phenomenon. As a freshman at Texas A&M, he didn't just win the Heisman Trophy, he shattered expectations and became a cultural icon overnight. But for every highlight, there was controversy lurking in the shadows. Fame, unchecked ego, and personal demons turned his meteoric rise into one of the most infamous falls in sports history. Here on Pride Before the Fall, we uncover the stories of greatness lost and legacies rewritten. This is the rise, fall, and fight for redemption of Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel wasn't born into greatness, but he always had a flair for the dramatic. Growing up in the small town of Kerrville, Texas, Manziel displayed an early knack for sports. Baseball, basketball, golf, whatever he played, he excelled. But football was his true calling. At Tivy High School, Manziel earned the nickname Johnny Football for his jaw-dropping performances as a dual-threat quarterback. His ability to improvise under pressure was unmatched. He could scramble out of trouble, zigzag across the field, and still throw a perfect spiral. By his senior year, Manziel had rewritten the Texas high school record books, amassing over 7,600 passing yards, 2,100 rushing yards, and 75 total touchdowns. He wasn't just a player, he was a phenomenon. But his rise wasn't without its challenges. Despite his gaudy stats and highlight reel plays, Manziel wasn't heavily recruited by the nation's top programs. Coaches doubted whether his unconventional play style would translate to college football. Schools like Texas and Oklahoma passed on him, considering him too risky. But Texas A&M saw potential where others didn't. In 2011, Manziel committed to Texas A&M, a decision that would change his life forever. Redshirting his freshman year, he watched from the sidelines, waiting for his chance to shine. By 2012, under new head coach Kevin Sumlin, Manziel stepped into the spotlight, and he didn't just make an impression, he took over. Manziel's redshirt freshman season was one for the ages. Playing in the powerhouse SEC, he racked up stats that seemed straight out of a video game. Over 5,000 total yards, 47 touchdowns, and a series of jaw-dropping performances that left fans and analysts stunned. The highlight of the season came on November 10, 2012, when Texas A&M faced off against top-ranked Alabama. It was supposed to be a blowout in favor of the defending champions. Instead, it became the game that defined Manziel's career. Manziel dominated the Crimson Tide, scrambling out of impossible situations, throwing precision passes, and leading His performance was so iconic that even Alabama's head coach, Nick Saban, called him unstoppable. By the end of the season, Manziel had not only led Texas A&M to an 11-2 record, but he also became the first freshman in college football history to win the Heisman Trophy, the sport's most prestigious award. The crowd erupted as he hoisted the trophy, cementing his status as a college football legend. But it wasn't just his stats that made him famous, it was his personality. Manziel's fearless, charismatic style both on and off the field captivated fans. His flashy touchdown celebrations, media interviews, and larger-than-life presence turned Johnny Football into a household name. Suddenly he was everywhere, magazine covers, commercials, and talk shows. Manziel wasn't just a quarterback, he was a brand. Fans across the country flocked to see him play, and Texas A&M's games became must-watch events. But as Manziel's fame grew, so did the scrutiny. His off-field antics started to grab headlines. From photos of him partying to rumors of NCAA violations, it became clear that Johnny Football was enjoying the perks of fame and pushing the limits. Despite the distractions, Manziel continued to dazzle on the field, but the cracks in his image were beginning to show. The pressure of being college football's biggest star was mounting, and the line between Johnny Manziel and Johnny Football was starting to blur. After his meteoric rise in college, Johnny Manziel entered the 2014 NFL Draft with sky-high expectations. Questions about his maturity, discipline, and readiness for the league began to overshadow his talent. Once projected as a top 10 pick, Manziel watched as team after team passed on him. When the Cleveland Browns finally selected him at the 22nd overall pick, it was one of the most talked about moments of the year. Walking across the stage, Manziel flashed his infamous money sign, a confident gesture that captured the bold persona fans loved. But behind the scenes, warning signs were already visible. Reports surfaced of Manziel partying excessively in the weeks leading up to the draft. NFL insiders questioned whether he had the focus to lead a franchise, but the Browns, desperate for a star, believed his charisma could outweigh the risks. From the moment Manziel arrived in Cleveland, struggles began. While his fellow rookies were poring over playbooks, Manziel's off-field lifestyle became tabloid fodder. He was photographed at parties, seen with celebrities, and often surrounded by alcohol. Headlines chronicled his escapades, from Las Vegas trips to controversial social media posts. When Manziel finally stepped onto the field for his first NFL start, it was a disaster. Facing the Cincinnati Bengals, the Browns suffered a crushing 30-0 loss. Manziel completed just 10 of 18 passes for 80 yards, threw 2 interceptions, and looked overwhelmed. Analysts questioned his preparation and work ethic. Critics wondered if the NFL's speed and complexity had exposed him. Off the field, things were even worse. Stories of late-night partying, missed team meetings, and skipped film sessions painted the picture of a player who relied on his raw talent, a strategy that worked in college but was woefully inadequate in the NFL. His coaches grew frustrated, teammates lost trust, and the media labeled him a bust. In 2015, Manziel's off-field issues escalated dramatically. An alleged domestic violence incident involving his then-girlfriend made national headlines, prompting an NFL investigation. Sponsors began cutting ties with him, and his reputation spiraled further. Viral videos of Manziel partying surfaced repeatedly, and at one point, he lied about his whereabouts, claiming to be recovering from an injury while spotted at a nightclub. By the end of the season, the Browns had enough. In March 2016, Cleveland officially released Manziel, ending his brief and turbulent NFL career. Once the face of college football, Johnny Football was now a free agent with no teams willing to take a chance on him. Manziel's fall wasn't just about his performance on the field, it was about his off-field choices. Fame consumed him, and his inability to adapt to the demands of the NFL became a cautionary tale. Former Browns coach Mike Pettine later described drafting Manziel as toxic, saying it set the franchise back years. Critics labeled him one of the most disappointing rookie campaigns in NFL history. By the time the dust settled, Johnny Football was a shadow of his former self. The player who had once captivated the nation was now a poignant reminder of how quickly talent and fame can be squandered. Fans and critics were left wondering, what could have been? Johnny Manziel's fall from grace was dramatic, but his story didn't end there. After leaving the NFL in 2016, he disappeared from the public eye for months. During this time, he faced mounting personal challenges, including financial troubles, public scrutiny, and battles with mental health. Manziel later admitted this was the darkest period of his life, a time when he questioned whether he could ever turn things around. For the first time, Manziel began to open up about the deeper issues driving his behavior. In a candid interview, he revealed that he had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and admitted to self-medicating with alcohol and other substances. For years, his erratic behavior had been dismissed as arrogance or immaturity, but now the public began to see the complexities behind the headlines. Manziel's family played a crucial role in helping him confront his struggles. He later credited his parents with encouraging him to seek professional help, saying, "They never gave up on me, even when I gave up on myself." In 2018, Manziel announced his intention to return to professional football. He signed with the Canadian Football League, joining the Hamilton Tiger Cats. While some saw the move as a step down from the NFL, for Manziel, it was an opportunity to prove he still had what it took to play at a high level. Initially, Manziel struggled to adapt to the CFL's faster-paced game. After being traded to the Montreal Alouettes, he began to show flashes of his old brilliance. But consistency remained elusive, and lingering questions about his focus persisted. In 2019, the CFL released him, citing violations of his player agreement. Despite the disappointment, Manziel addressed the setback publicly, admitting he still had work to do. He stated, "I've let a lot of people down, including myself, but I'm trying to be better every day." For fans who had grown disillusioned with his antics, this moment of honesty was a refreshing change. In 2021, Manziel joined the fan-controlled Football League, an experimental league where fans called the plays. For many, it was a far cry from the glory of the NFL, but for Manziel, it was a chance to play the game he loved without the pressure of expectation. He described his time in the league as just for fun, emphasizing that football was no longer his primary focus. Instead, Manziel began to explore life beyond the game. He invested in business ventures, focused on improving his mental health, and reconnected with family and friends. For the first time in years, he seemed at peace with who he was and where he stood. Manziel's journey from stardom to rock bottom taught him hard lessons about fame, accountability, and personal growth. He reflected on his mistakes, saying, "I had everything handed to me, and I didn't know how to handle it. Now I understand the importance of earning what you have." He also used his platform to speak openly about mental health, encouraging others to seek help without shame. By sharing his struggles with bipolar disorder and addiction, Manziel became a voice for athletes and fans grappling with similar challenges. His vulnerability redefined his legacy for some, turning him from a fallen star into a relatable figure. Johnny Manziel's story is one that continues to captivate. His journey from the pinnacle of college football stardom to the depths of professional disappointment has left a mark on the world of sports. But beyond the stats, scandals, and headlines, what is Johnny Manziel's true legacy? Manziel's impact on football is undeniable. As a college quarterback, he changed the game with his improvisational style, redefining what a dual-threat quarterback could do. His ability to turn broken plays into spectacular touchdowns influenced a new generation of players. Today's mobile quarterbacks, like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, carry echoes of the improvisation and unpredictability that made Manziel so thrilling to watch. Fans still talk about Manziel's electrifying performances at Texas A&M, especially his legendary upset of Alabama. His Heisman Trophy win remains a historic achievement. He wasn't just the first freshman to win the award, but also a symbol of how young athletes can rise to prominence in an instant. But his professional career tells a different story. In the NFL, his lack of preparation, discipline, and focus became cautionary lessons for aspiring athletes. Coaches and analysts point to Manziel as a prime example of the dangers of being unprepared for the pressures of professional sports. Former Browns coach Mike Pettin once said, "Johnny's talent was never the question. It was everything else that held him back." Beyond the football field, Johnny Manziel became a cultural phenomenon. For a brief moment, he was more than an athlete. He was a brand. Johnny football jerseys sold out nationwide, and his brash personality made him a fixture in pop culture. His infamous money sign gesture became a defining image of his confidence, and perhaps his hubris. And even on late-night talk shows. For many, he symbolized the intersection of sports and celebrity. But fame came at a cost. His off-field persona often overshadowed his on-field accomplishments, and his struggles played out in the public eye. Today, Manziel's cultural legacy is a mix of admiration and controversy. Fans still reminisce about his college days, but his name is often mentioned alongside other athletes whose potential was never fully realized. Manziel's post-football journey has reshaped how some view his legacy. While he may never have achieved greatness in the NFL, his openness about mental health and personal struggles has given his story a new layer of meaning. In interviews, Manziel has spoken candidly about his mistakes, saying, "I don't want to be remembered for my failures, but for how I tried to overcome them." His role in breaking the stigma around mental health in sports cannot be overstated. By sharing his diagnosis of bipolar disorder and discussing his struggles with addiction, Manziel has contributed to a broader conversation about the importance of mental health support for athletes. For some, this vulnerability redefined his legacy, turning him from a fallen star into a relatable figure who learned from his failures. Manziel's story also holds valuable lessons for young athletes. His rise, fall, and efforts at redemption highlight the importance of preparation, accountability, and balance. Coaches and teammates often point to him as an example of how talent alone isn't enough to succeed at the highest levels of competition. His story is also a reminder of the complexity of hero worship and the pressures we place on public figures. For fans, it's a story about the dangers of unchecked fame and the human cost of relentless expectations. Johnny Manziel's journey may not have the fairy tale ending that fans envisioned, but it's a story that resonates deeply. It's a reminder that success isn't just about talent. It's about the choices we make, the challenges we face, and how we rise after a fall. While some will remember him as a college football legend, and others as a professional disappointment, Manziel himself seems content with where his journey has taken him. As he once said, "I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to be better every day. That's all I can do." For Johnny Manziel, legacy isn't about trophies or records. It's about growth, resilience, and the ability to keep moving forward. Johnny Manziel's journey is one of the most fascinating and complex stories in the history of sports. From the dizzying heights of college football glory to the humbling lows of professional struggles, his rise, fall, and search for redemption have captivated fans and critics alike. But beyond the headlines, Johnny's story carries important lessons about the pressures of fame, the challenges of mental health, and the power of second chances. It reminds us that talent is only part of the equation. Character, resilience, and accountability matter just as much. As we reflect on Johnny Football's legacy, one thing is clear: his journey is far from over. While the NFL may no longer be part of his future, his story continues to evolve, offering hope, inspiration, and caution for athletes and fans alike. Thank you for watching today's deep dive into Johnny Manziel's story. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Pride Before the Fall for more incredible stories about the rise and fall of sports legends. And don't miss our next video, where we'll explore another stunning rise and fall in NFL history, the story of Ryan Leaf. Once a top draft pick competing with Peyton Manning for the league's spotlight, Leaf's journey took a sharp turn into controversy and hardship, but it didn't end there. Stay tuned to see how Ryan Leaf turned his darkest moments into a powerful story of redemption.